Hi everybody, and welcome to the Cocoon Clinic's official YouTube channel. My name is Brittany. I am a speech pathologist of 8 years, a mother of 4 very young kids, and I am here to share early language learning tips with you. Before we dive into our topic today, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, and probably the most important thing that you can do is to share this video with somebody else. As a new YouTube channel, I would appreciate it so much. So screen time use with our kids is a really hot topic right now. And I see a lot of negative, guilt-tripping, condemning information on social media in the comment section, but also just in the information that's put out there to parents about this topic. And often parents walk away feeling like guilty for giving their kids screen time and not knowing how can I decrease the negative effects of screen time without completely cutting it out? Because here's the reality, right? On the one hand, we have screen time, and there are negative effects of screen time. We all see it. Screen time affects things as simple as sleep patterns. It affects speech and language development. It affects social skills. It affects brain development. It affects, attention span. There's so many negative effects shown by research, to screen time and children using technology. There's no refuting that. That is a reality that we live in. But there's also this other reality that we live in a world that's full of technology. We are on our phones or our tablets or our computers right now watching this video. Not only that, but our emails and a lot of our work-related stuff is on technology, on our phones, on our computers. Kids go on the computer at school. Often they crave the phone or movies. That's a form of entertainment for them in this day and age. And so we have these two realities. We have the negative effects linked to screen time, and then the reality that screen time does exist and it will continue to exist. So how do we form a healthy, nurturing environment for our kids that doesn't eliminate screen time, but decreases the negative effects of screen time on our children's brains? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Today, I want to talk about 6 different ways that we can help decrease the negative effects of screen time in our children's lives. And I also want to talk about some language strategies that we can implement into our daily lives to nurture communication. So my first tip is not to give a child the device as a way to calm them down if they are upset, angry, tantruming, overwhelmed, because research does show that brain development is negatively affected when we hand our children a device as a way to cope. We need to provide some sort of human interaction and human comfort. If a child gets human comfort first, then their brain develops normally. So they need a parent or a friend or a teacher to calm them down and comfort them and talk them through what they are going through. Even if it's just a hug or whatever it is, they need that person-to-person interaction rather than, a YouTube to child interaction. Miss Rachel is lovely, but she cannot console your child every time they're having a tantrum. JJ cannot calm down your child every time they're having a tantrum. Your child's brain needs, a caregiver to calm them down. So that's number 1. Now, of course, there are exceptions to all of these rules. I do want to make that clear that depending on your family dynamic, depending on your schedule, depending on a whole lot of things, some of these tips will need to be modified. It's not a set in stone, it has to be this one way. These are just tips that you can use in your daily life. So my second tip isn't really a tip as much as some information about what kind of screen time is the best. And so a lot of times we give our kids the phones, we give our kids the tablets, and they love the phones and the tablets. Why? Because they can scroll. And scrolling has a lot of negative effects on our children's brain. Scrolling, it teaches our kids that as soon as they touch something, and immediately, instant gratification, right? We see a very big increase in young children. They are more hyper, they're not able to wait as long, they're not able to be bored, they have a hard time focusing, and they do have this kind of microwave mentality. And a lot of this is formed by screens. We even see it in, older children, adolescents. This isn't just young children. And so research shows that children 3 and under, the swiping is really detrimental. But the reality is that swiping isn't quite good for any of us, right? And so how much more so are little kids? So instead of giving your child a tablet or a phone, TV is really gonna be your best option when it comes to screen time. One, it stays put. It does not travel with your child. If your child leaves the room to use the bathroom or go to the kitchen and grab a snack, the TV does not follow them, the TV stays. Whereas a phone or a tablet, they never even have to look up. The second reason why the TV will be considered better is because of that swiping. You cannot swipe a TV. And if I do have to use a tablet or a phone, which does happen, I prop it up onto something and try to set my child back. So the phone might be against, the wall, and my child is sitting back a foot or two, because then there's less temptation to swipe the phone. So my third tip today is to let your children be bored. Provide opportunities even for your child to be bored. So next time your child says, "I'm so bored," you can inform them at an age-appropriate level that boredom is a good skill, if you will, for them to learn. That they need boredom because it is in boredom that their imagination will grow, and that they'll learn to explore, and that they'll observe their environment, which is very important for language development and brain development. And so these are the things that we want our children to grow in and to learn. But if we are constantly providing entertainment for them, whether it be technology or otherwise, and we don't ever allow them to be bored, it can create an issue for them in the future. So right now, in the here and now, if your child says, "I am bored," what I suggest doing is providing for them a prompt, if they need it, to go ahead and fill that boredom. So what I mean by a prompt is you might say, "Hey, go to your room, pretend you're a princess, and pretend your room is a castle." Maybe your child needs a little bit more than that. You might say, "Okay, you're gonna save all your stuffed animals from a flood that's coming." And then you're gonna send them off to actually do that. A lot of times my kids will be like, "Can you do that with me?" And it's like, no, this is your independent time. This is your time to go and play. And it's in that time that they'll learn to use their imagination and use their exploratory skills and use the information that they know to form their own play scene, to form their own story. If you're in a car and you have a child who's bored, you might want to give them prompts like, "Look out the window and find 20 things that are green," or "Look out the window and find the letters A through Z." Look out the window and find something you eat with and something you play with. So let your kids be bored. Going off of tip number 3 is tip number 4. They are closely correlated and related. And tip number 4 is, if you can avoid it, do not give your child technology or screen time during meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or outings. Outings would be like going to a restaurant, going grocery shopping, going to a park. You will not believe it, or maybe you will because you live in the same world I do, the amount of times that I go to a restaurant and I look around and everybody is on their phones. There will be a full family full of children and everybody is on a device. I hate it. It saddens me. There's a lot of opportunities for language development during outings, and it is just completely missed, especially with our really young children, because we hand them a device. So let's talk about this one a little bit more in depth. I'm going to give you 3 more structured language tips or strategies to utilize during these times, and 3 more unstructured strategies to utilize during these times. Structured strategy number 1 would be to play a game such as the guessing game, 20 questions. I think we all kind of understand this game, and it is when somebody thinks about something in their head, they tell everybody what the category is, like I'm thinking of an animal or I'm thinking of a movie, and then everyone else has to ask questions to figure out what it is that the person is thinking of. So how this might work with your kids is you might say, I'm thinking of an animal, and then your kids will ask questions to figure out what it is. And whether or not they ask WH questions or yes or no questions is completely dependent on the rules that you set as the parents and what you want your kids to work on. And so they might ask questions like, is it blue? Does it live on a farm? What does it say? Where does it live? These are questions that they might ask you, and then you will answer them, and they will try to deduce what it is that you were thinking of. And then they, of course, would take a turn as well. So that is number one. Number two is much more simple, and that is just to go around and kind of do a rating of your day. What was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of your day? What was something that made you smile today? You go around and ask these kinds of questions, and everybody at the table or at the event, whatever, would answer the question. Number three would be some kind of conversation cards. If you're not familiar with conversation cards, they're little cards that you can either make yourself or download. There's a bunch online. And these are questions like, if you were to write a book, what would it be about? Or if you could only drink one thing for the rest of your life, what would you drink? There are questions that evoke imagination, and sometimes can really help with language development, sentence formation, descriptive language. It's a great way to get your kids thinking, chatting, and laughing because some of the questions can be so silly. Now I'm going to talk about three less structured, so unstructured language activities that you can implement. And generally speaking, these would probably be better to utilize somewhere out and about, like a park or a grocery store. Number one would be to narrate. If you have been following me for any amount of time, you know that I am all about narration, especially with our kids 3 and under. It is such an important tool to increase language development, and quite honestly, it takes very little effort. So I'm a huge fan. And narration is when you do just that. You narrate what you are doing as the parent, you narrate what your child is doing, and you narrate what is happening around you. And so if you're at a grocery store, you might narrate something like this. Okay, we are in the produce section now. Oh, look at that woman. She is trying to find an avocado. She's feeling all the avocados because she needs one that's nice and soft. I wonder what she's going to make for dinner tonight. I bet you she's going to make some guacamole. Mommy's gonna go buy a tomato. So let's go find a nice red tomato. And you're just talking about what you're doing. You're talking about, other people in the store, not in a rude or disrespectful way, but just in a way that you're telling and informing your kids what people in the store are doing. This needs a whole other video, so I'm not gonna go too much more in depth about it, but narration is number one. Number two goes right off of narration, and that is using descriptive language. So going back to our produce section, we're looking at the tomatoes now, and we might say things or use words in the produce section like large, small, long, short, stumpy, ripe, rotten. You might say something like delicious, tasty, sour. These are descriptive words, and as we are shopping and buying things, again, takes very little effort. You're just saying like, all right, let's put those red tomatoes in the bag. I want to find one that's extra juicy. Oh, you got 3 tomatoes? That's amazing. But I really need bigger tomatoes. So let's look for some big ones. So again, you're narrating to your child while you're just doing a daily task. Number 3 would be to give your child 1 to 2 step directions to follow while in the store. This would depend on their age level, their development. If you have any questions about, what kind of questions to ask your child or what kind of directions to give them, drop it in the comments below. But generally speaking, 1 to 2 steps would be appropriate. And you might say, go grab the pink milk from the freezer, from the freezer. Or you might say, can you please go get those purple juice boxes off the bottom shelf? So depending on, how focused and how, your child's ability, you would make it harder or easier. But giving your child directions to follow definitely helps with receptive language. So those are the 3 structured and unstructured ways that you can target language during meals and outings instead of giving your child a device to entertain them in those times. So tip number 5 is really straightforward. I'm not going to elaborate on it. I'm just going to state it and leave it there. And that is to turn off screens 30 to 60 minutes before your child goes to sleep. And we are at number 6. And this one is kind of the best for last scenario. It's one of the hardest ones to implement, but it will make such a difference for all of our children if we implement it. And that is to watch our own technology and screen time use. Research shows that there is such a thing as second-hand technology use or secondhand screen time. And so think of it this way. If a child lives in a home where there's tobacco use, that child never needs to smoke to experience secondhand smoke or the effects of secondhand smoke. They might have some of those similar health effects just by being in the environment where tobacco is. And it's similar with technology. And this is why it's so important for us as the parent, as the caregiver, to watch how much we are using technology and screens around our kids. Even if they are not the ones directly using the screen, they can still reap some of the negative effects just by us using the screens around them. All right, everybody, those are 6 ways to decrease the negative effects of technology use with our kids. I hope you got something out of this video. Let me know in the comments below which one of these tips you plan on implementing with your child today, this week, this month. I look forward to hearing from you all. As always, please like, subscribe, and share this video. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.